Gearing a new character in Guild Wars 2 is very confusing, especially if you want to access the endgame content sooner rather than later. If you want to jump into Fractals of the Mists in particular, having full Ascended gear in every slot is more or less a requirement. Today, I'm going to go through how I went about gearing a new character on a different account in full Ascended so I could jump into Fractals as soon as possible. The first thing we need to do is create our character. I chose Guardian in this case because as someone who runs Fractals most days, life is so much easier on Firebrand. Heal Firebrand is a great carry for most pug groups with Aegis, stability, great healing, and quickness. Straight Condi DPS Firebrand is of course great DPS, has a very easy rotation, and includes all the baked in utility and usefulness that both base Guardian and Firebrand bring to the table. There are even a select few Fractals where having a Guardian can allow you to skip large sections with a few cheeky skills. I'll be gearing a Condi Quickness Firebrand here because it provides me the most flexibility of the three main builds. While this video will be focused on Firebrand, the steps for gearing can be applied to any class and build that you want. Fortunately, we have a spare level 80 boost on this account after buying the End of Dragons expansion, so we can save ourselves a huge chunk of time and actually get some decent starting gear. The Celestial gear we now get from the boost will be super useful for our Firebrand, and we can comfortably use it until we replace it with our Ascended gear down the track. Next, we need to unlock Firebrand. The fastest way to do this is to simply work your way through the expansion maps and focus on the hero points. If you keep an eye on the LFG tool, you may find a hero point train, so just tag along with that if you happen to see one. I went through the Path of Fire maps because the hero points on these maps are much easier to do solo than those in Heart of Thorns, plus I know these locations fairly well. And after that, we've unlocked our elite spec and have a decent build equipped. One of the most cost-effective ways to get ascended weapons is through the various elite specialization collections. Here you can unlock an ascended version of the weapon unique to each specialization, so check to see what weapons you can easily get through these different collections. In this case, we need an ascended axe, torch, and scepter. The axe and torch can be covered off by the Firebrand and Scourge collections. These collections took roughly 3 hours each to complete and cost in the ballpark of 20 to 25 gold. Note that you'll need the crafting discipline associated with each weapon leveled to 400 to make one of the components for each collection. Check out the links in the description if you want a step-by-step guide for how to level these crafting disciplines cheaply and efficiently. For the scepter, we can get one even cheaper by completing the Knight of the Thorn quest that comes after completing the Heart of Thorn story, minor spoilers ahead. As part of this quest, you get access to an ascended version of Calibog that can take the form of one of the following weapons: dagger, scepter, wink wink, sword, shield, and greatsword. After you unlock the weapon, for the cheap price of 1000 unbound magic, you can even change the type of weapon you have and its stats for a nice little cherry on top. By far the easiest way to get ascended trinkets is through the Living World Season 3 and 4 episodes. If you've been playing the game for a while, I'm going to assume that you have access to these episodes. If you don't have access to them, it's well worth your time to farm up some gold, convert it to gems, and purchase some of the episodes. If for nothing else, then for how easy it is to gear extra characters and trinkets. If you still need to complete the Return to Living World achievements, then congratulations, your life just got even easier. For each of these episodes, when you complete Tier 3 of the Return to Living World achievements for that map, then you get rewarded with a full stack of that specific map currency. This can usually be done by completing the episode story missions, then doing some gathering and events in each map. For each episode that I did this with, I found this could be done in around 1 to 2 hours depending on the map. For this I got a ring and back piece from Bloodstone Fen. This took a little bit more farming of the blood rubies and doing some map completion. An earring and a ring we got from Dragonfall. The final earring I got from Bitterfrost Frontier. I recommend unlocking this map anyway because the Winterberry farm is amazing for gearing new characters. While an Ascended Amulet is not needed for Fractals, given that it doesn't have an Agony slot, I got one by crafting the Vial of Salt for approximately 18 gold. If you don't have access to the Return to Living World achievements, then I'd still recommend farming the currencies for these maps as a way to get Ascended trinkets. It might just take you a little bit longer. Once you have access to the endgame content, it becomes really easy to get Ascended gear. Usually, I'd get these through random drops from Fractals or raids, or purchasing them with currencies that we earn via Fractals, raids, and strike missions. However, for your very first set, it's going to be much quicker and easier to craft it using either your tailor, leatherworker, or armorsmith. This basically turns getting Ascended Armor into a little bit of a gold farm, while just buying the materials that you need. It also means that you need to level your specific crafting discipline all the way to 500. Don't worry, it's always a good idea to have your crafting disciplines maxed out anyway. I'll try and level up your crafting as soon as possible, so you can craft some of the daily time-gated Ascended materials each day while you wait. This will save you some gold in the long run. Outside that, just play the game and earn up the gold that you need. There are tons of gold making guides for Guild Wars 2 available, and I'll link some of my favourite ones in the description below. Again, if you have access to the Return to Living World achievements, your life just got even easier once again. If you complete the achievements for the Return to Steel and Fire episode, you'll get gifted with 300 blue profit shards. These can be exchanged for 2 pieces of Ascended Armor plus a few gold, which cuts down how much gold you need to farm substantially. These achievements took me roughly 2 hours to do by myself. How long it will take you to get Ascended Armor will largely depend on how quickly you can farm gold. In my case, I did this at a fairly leisurely pace, mainly just doing open world events, leveling my masteries on my alt account, and selling whatever materials I didn't need. Congratulations, you now have full Ascended gear. Take a moment to bask in your newfound glory and magnificence. The last thing we need to do before we can jump into Fractals is to load our character up with Agony Resistance. To do Fractal level 100, the highest level, you need to have at least 150 Agony Resistance across your infusion slots. One thing to note is that your back piece and rings can be upgraded to include additional infusion slots. You do this by infusing the rings and back piece and attuning your rings. Each of these will give you an additional infusion slot for each trinket. Attuning the rings is done by Mystic Forging them with a +1 Agony Infusion, Agonized Essence, and a Philosopher's Stone. Infusing the rings is done by forging them with 1, 3, and 5 of the tier 3, 2, and 1 Mist Essences respectively. Infusing your back piece is done by forging it with the Shard of Mist Essence, 1 Gift of Ascension, and 1 stack of Ectoplasm. You may need to farm up some Fractal relics to buy these if you've never done Fractals before. However, even without these additional infusion slots, you should have enough Agony Resistance to do the tier 3 Fractals comfortably. A few days of tier 3 Fractal dailies should get you everything you need. One minor note is that the Fractal Potion consumables give you additional stats based on how much Agony Resistance you have. The build I'm going for takes into account the stats I get from having 162 Agony Resistance, instead of the minimum required 150. Don't worry too much about this if you're just starting out, and just go for 150 Agony Resistance. For me, however, I'm loading up my character with +9 infusions in each slot for a total of 162 AR. Getting the AR is basically just another gold farm and cost me around about 80 gold when I bought everything off the trading post. However, you could do 150 AR for around about 50 gold or so. With that, we just need to purchase some useful food, and we are now ready for anything that Fractals can throw at us. With all the new ways to get Ascended gear since it was first introduced years ago, it's now so much easier to get your first Ascended set. Now that your first set is under your belt, you can run any of the recommended Fractals each day, which coincidentally have a decent chance to drop Ascended gear chests, not to mention a nice chunk of liquid gold. This drop chance alone makes it so much easier to gear your next character, and before too long, you'll be swimming in more Ascended gear than you know what to do with. Now go forth, farm, and lord your newfound wealth all over your friends, guildmates, and loved ones.